Let's do some command line OSINT with Sherlock and Maigret. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone to Get a Grip on Security, your hub for all things cybersecurity, open source intelligence, everything in between. I'm your host, Pete. Today we're going to be talking about upping your username enumeration game when you're conducting your open source intelligence by using command line tools. We're going to talk about two tools today, one being Sherlock and the other being Maigret. If you know your literary history, those are two very famous detectives, one being English, Sherlock Holmes, the other being French with Maigret, of course. Those names notwithstanding, extremely powerful username enumeration tools that you should definitely put into your toolbox. And we're going to get to those in a little bit. First, I want to start with why use command line open source tools at all, especially when there is a lot of effort being put into graphical user interface tools. My favorite being what's my name.app. Shout out to Web Breacher, Micah Hoffman, and the rest of the crew over there. They put together a great tool, very user-friendly, very easy to get up and running and doing your username enumeration with that tool. And there's a couple other ones out there that I've played with that have definitely saved me a lot of time. But when it comes to command line, nothing really beats the depth and breadth that you can get with some of these tools that I'll demonstrate in a little bit. We can even go international with our username searches. Some of those capabilities are not built into the standard graphical user interface tools. Because they are graphical user interfaces, they are going to use more memory. So the more depth you use, especially in a graphical user interface, the slower your tool is going to be. So those tools are those graphical line interface tools, often are limited in their scope so they can provide that user experience along with that speed. So there are trade-offs here. And another great benefit to using command line OSINT is you can really modify it to fit your needs. It's very easy once you know a tool set and how it functions within command line to use commandlets, or in other words, command options, to better narrow that tool scope or even expand that tool scope to use things like HTTP proxies, to run it over a Tor network, to use it within a virtual machine, is all made possible because this tool is running in a language that operating system understands. And those tools are going to run a wider breadth faster because it doesn't have to worry about spinning up that graphical user interface that we talked about before. And the great thing about these tools, and this might be a video for another time after we're done explaining the tools in this video, they're fully scriptable once you install these tools and are able to understand what kind of variables that you need to define for the script to run itself, and any other options that you may want to play with that you may have set up in your virtual machines and that command line environment to have better operational security, and even to generate reports for you when you're not physically at your desk is an extremely powerful thing. So let's get into Sherlock and Maigret and explain a little bit more of what we're dealing with here. Into the meat and potatoes and get Sherlock and Maigret set up and have our tools start working for us. First off, I wanted to use an environment for this demonstration today that was very high speed, low drag, that everyone can access regardless of their experience with things like Linux, virtual machines, and command line environments. I really wanted to cut through the noise, especially for some of my viewers that may be doing this for the first time, and not check them at the door because of any inexperience. I want these tools to be up and available for anyone as long as they're able to familiarize themselves a little bit with the command line environment. They're able to use these tools. So today for the demonstration and for our command line environment, we're going to go ahead and utilize the Google Cloud Platform, and we're going to use the Cloud Shell Editor. Anyone with a Google account has access to this. I wouldn't recommend paying for it if you're just going to use it for demonstration purposes and to better familiarize yourself with the tool. If you are going to use Sherlock and Maigret professionally for your open source intelligence, I would recommend getting a virtual machine set up or paying for this service so you do have some level of persistence here. If you're using this for free, the tool may time out and you're going to lose everything that you ran on this platform. It's going to reset back to stock and you're going to lose all that data. So keep that in mind and use this platform for the use case that you feel is best for you. So if we go ahead and click on this first link here, we're going to come into an environment much like this one. You may have to drag this all the way up to the top like I like to. I don't really use many other tools in here as I do have my own OSINT Linux environment, but this will serve well for our purposes today. So let's set up Sherlock first. Let's take a look at Sherlock. So the first thing we want to do when setting up the Sherlock tool is ensure that we have a version of Python running on our machine wherever we want to set this up, because Sherlock at its core is a Python-based tool, and it is in fact a script. So we need to make sure we have the underlying things under the hood in order to make that work. So to check that we have Python, we'll use the command which, and we'll say Python. Hit enter, and we see that we do have an instance of Python on this machine. So we're good to go there. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and clone the Sherlock repository. So I have that link up here. You can get it off of Google. You want to make sure that you have the Sherlock project version of Sherlock. There are a couple other versions out there, but we'll be dealing with the official one today. To verify that we have that, we'll see this picture here and also a demonstration of the tool working. So we know we're good to go there. So we'll copy this URL, Control C, and we'll come back to our Cloud Shell. We'll say git clone, because we want to clone that repository, and we'll go ahead and paste that URL in, and we'll hit enter. So now we're getting all of those things in the repository that we're able to run the tool. So if we say list the contents of our current directory with ls, we see that we now have a Sherlock directory. We'll change directories in there. CD Sherlock, CD stands for change directory. And now we're in our Sherlock directory. We'll list the contents again. And we see that there's this directory Sherlock project. That's where our script lives. So we'll change in there. CD Sherlock project. We'll use our nifty tab complete. And now we'll list the contents of that with another ls. And we see this sherlock.py. That is our tool script. And that's the script we're going to be utilizing. So to use our Sherlock script, we need to make sure that we're in this directory. And we'll say Python, which is why we checked that we had Python in the first place. And let's just say sherlock.py for now. So here you'll see some options. So we can use verbose mode, which will give us more of a printout of our results. We can output it to a file. We can use things like Tor and a proxy to have better operational security. We can output this to a CSV. We can output this to a JSON file. As you can see, there are a lot of options here, like I talked about in the intro. So we're getting an error message here. We need to give it a username. So how we run this tool with the username is that same command. So we'll hit the up arrow to bring our command back, Python sherlock.py. Then we'll give it a username. Let's use T. Straussman, because I know that was a persona set up by TryHackMe in one of their OSINT rooms that I have a write-up on at getagrep.tech. View at your pleasure. So we can feel pretty safe that we'll get some results with this. So let's hit enter. So Sherlock is going to query against something like 400 different sites last time I took a look at the tool repository. So let's pause here and let that run for a little bit and come back to our results. Okay, so we're back and we let our tool run for about 5 minutes. It takes a little bit to go through all 400 sites and look for active usernames. But here we are. It looks like we have 13 results. Now, does that mean every one of these results is your target? Not necessarily. It simply means that someone is using the username on that site that we provided to the tool, that there is a T. Straussman somewhere at Annie World, at archive.org, at Fiverr, etc. So you will have to go through and click on each one of these links to verify that that is indeed a good link for your target. And another note on both of these tools is that sometimes the algorithms for some of these sites, especially when it comes to things like social media, change almost daily. So sometimes, anytime you run a tool like this, whether it's GUI or within the command line, is simply a snapshot in time of how that username is used across the areas that the tool is looking for. So my best recommendation when you're doing open source intelligence, especially if you're looking at a target for a long period of time, is look for changes in your outputs over time. Your target may have set up new social media, may have expanded their online footprint into different sites that will be picked up by your tool. Make sure that anytime you run a search with these tools, you understand the date and the time in which you ran those tools. So that's the Sherlock tool in and of itself. Let's move over to Maigret. So now that we have a clean terminal, we cleaned our results up a little bit. Let's talk about Maigret. Now, why would I choose Maigret over the tool we just used, Sherlock? So Maigret is Sherlock on steroids, as I tell people. Maigret searches over 3,000 worldwide websites across multiple countries, many different top-level domains, and it also builds in recursiveness in its searches. So say Maigret finds a Instagram page where there's a bunch of links in the bio, a bunch of different usernames that may point to businesses. Maigret is going to grab those and use those as additional search queries because it finds that as a link between the two usernames. So really powerful tool there. So let's get Maigret. We're going to get Maigret in the same way we did Sherlock by cloning a repository. And here's the repository that we want to use. So we'll copy that. And once again, we'll come over to our Cloud Shell and say git clone, and we'll paste that URL in there, and we'll hit enter. So this is going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more memory, because the tool is so much bigger than Sherlock. So if we list the contents of our home directory, you see that we have a Maigret directory in there now. So we'll change directories into Maigret with CD. And we'll list out its contents with ls. As you can see, there's a lot of things to install with this tool. Bunch of YAML files, wizard.py, etc. So how we're going to handle this is we're going to use pip to install it. So we'll say pip for pip 3 install dot. So what that is going to do is it's going to use pip to install, and the dot means everything in our current directory. So we'll go ahead and hit enter there. It's going to pull down a bunch of dependencies that Maigret needs to run. And this should run fairly quickly. So there we go. We have our Maigret tool. We're going to say clear to get rid of that because we don't need it anymore. I like to work clean. Now we should have our Maigret script up and running. So we're going to use another username for this that I used in my Sakura write-up for a Try Hack Me room. Go ahead and check that out on getagrep.tech, where I play with the Maigret tool in real time. So we're going to run Maigret against another username created by Try Hack Me. We're going to use maigret.py again. So we're going to say // to run a script in our current directory, maigret.py. And we're going to say Sakura Snow Angel Ico, which is another persona set up by Try Hack Me, so we should be pretty safe here. And we'll fire away with Maigret. Let's try that again. Maybe different from the last time that I used it. Tools are always evolving, so take that into account. There we go. So as you can see, Maigret's firing away here. Already found more results than Sherlock did. Maigret is going to look for usernames and recursiveness across 3,000 different sites worldwide. So this really is the nuclear option when it comes to username enumeration. So we'll let this run and we'll come back and play with it. All right, so here we are back with our Maigret results. This took about 10 minutes, so longer than Sherlock, but we got some better results here. So if you can see up at the top, we have a GitHub, and Maigret tried to do some recursive searching here. So it's going to give us a UID for a user ID. It's going to find any images that they may have. It's going to show us the created on date, a follower count. It even found a full name in here for us of ICO, which is going to help us in our open source intelligence. It's going to tell us how many repos are on that GitHub. So pretty good information there. We found some other results. We even found a .ru site, which is coming out of Russia. So as always, consider your operational security when visiting sites that may be foreign to you and may not be within your area of operations. Always stay within scope when doing your open source intelligence. With that being said, make sure that you validate that these are indeed the user that you're looking for. Even has a Yandex Music account that's also out of Russia, which is pretty cool. Maigret restarted checks on 11 sites. So what that means is either A, it found something that it wants to look at recursively, maybe this running this as a username, or looking for this image or what have you. A lot of the time when Maigret restarts, it gets this access denied error. So it's going to get that once, retry it again, and if it doesn't, it's going to quit. And if it reaches a high percentage of access denied, the tool stops. So another great thing with Maigret is this short text report. So there's extended info on one account. Let's get rid of that, which we saw with the GitHub. And this is important as well. The countries in which these domains reside may point to, especially if you're doing like threat actor enumeration, may point to the country of origin for that person. You're going to visit sites that you're familiar with in your area of operations. So if you have a high concentration of US and don't visit anything else, these countries are going to get cut down. And it also has interest here. So coding, gaming, sharing, some not safe for work things, as well as this. So it looks at each entry and gives it a category. So you get interests and sites that your target may visit a lot, and gives you kind of a pattern of life for your target as you go through these sites. So that's going to wrap up our exploration of Sherlock and Maigret for today. I hope that if this was your first exposure to command line interface tools, that this kind of launches you into a new area of exploration in your tool set for your open source intelligence. Sometimes our GUI tools don't give us the results that we want, and we want to expand our investigation, or sometimes they're encumbered by updates or things like that. So being able to pivot, even in our tool set, is something that advanced OSINT practitioners are able to do, and flexing into a command line environment is no exception to that rule. So I hope this has launched you into an area and it allowed you a platform to experiment with those tools. If you like these videos, like and comment and subscribe. Let me know what you guys want to see in the future. I'm definitely going to do a video on how to script these tools to give an output in order for you to run open source intelligence reports through a script and not have to be at your desk to get reporting done and see those different changes over time. So follow me, getagrep.tech, find me on LinkedIn. Hope to hear from you. Until next time, be safe, always do OSINT for good. See you next time.